here on Facebook Live, facebook.com/live now. DT, our second video of the day, second portion of today's broadcast is now here for you, and we are talking about the AFC West. Once again, the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Las Vegas. That is right, the Las Vegas. They were the Los Angeles, then they were the Oakland, now they're the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chargers. They used to be in San Diego and moved to Los Angeles. So we'll have all of them here with Mike Sofka as we analyze the AFC West for the 2020-2021 NFL season inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. So with all of that being said, I bring in the other piece of fantasy football here on Wake Up Call, and that is my guy, Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Sir, how are we doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Dan. How are you?
Doing well, man, and I'm happy to have you here. I love the fact that we've gotten to do this. This is our last of the AFC. We started with the North, then we took on the South, and we had the East last week. The West is rounding us out here for this week, and I feel so grateful and honored to be able to do things like this for the community. You and I ranked our fantasy quarterbacks already. We did our running backs, our wide receivers, our tight ends. Those videos are all available on the homepage of wakeupcalldt.com, and the audio for the tight end one is there as well. And since then, we have broken down each of the divisions inside of the AFC. We'll head to the NFC after this. So we're going to get started here. But first and foremost, what are your thoughts? Last time we talked, there was one more day to opt out. That was last Thursday. Players had the opportunity last Thursday to opt out of the season, and that was officially on August 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. They had to make a decision. What were your thoughts on that ultimately? I know you posted a list of all the players that eventually either made the decision to stay in or go out. What were your overall thoughts on the opting out this season, which is obviously very unique due to coronavirus?
You know, I think it's an individual thing. At first, I was like, "Are you serious? We're going to be opting out. We're going to not play." I just thought it was ridiculous. But I understand people have their own reasons. Some people have different situations going on. Some people, have a family members that could be compromised. Some people have a combination of things. These are large human beings that we're talking about playing this game that we love. So sometimes there's health risks that come involved with that. And, you look, predominantly, I saw some big position guys. And when I say big position, I don't mean big at their position. I mean, these guys are normally the larger guys on the field. I saw a lot of linemen, defense and offensive linemen. I didn't really see a lot of names that wowed me. I wasn't shocked by any one particular person, but I would think that the team that got hit the most with that was New England. I mean, they had like 8 guys, I think, and, it's hard enough with the transition away from Brady. Now Gronk's definitely not coming back there. And you got, some of your leading players on the team, Patrick Chung, Dante Hightower. Was this going to be the year Marquise Lee finally showed up? No, he's going to sit at home and collect a check. So, it is what it is, and I don't mean to dismiss it so bad. Obviously, there's probably some circumstances we're not privy to, but at the same time, I'm just disappointed in the whole COVID thing and the way it's affecting our society and football. Football's a business. This is a lot of money for a lot of people, a lot of families in this country. So hopefully we can get past this soon and get back to playing football.
Yeah, and get back to a life, like you said. I mean, so many people being affected, families being affected, teachers being affected. I had the conversation yesterday. I said not having school for college, high school, elementary, doesn't matter. I mean, not having school in general, you would basically take a parent that works full-time, let's say, and you force that parent to be a full-time worker, and a parent, which they already are, and then you add in, so they're already a full-time worker, they're already a parent, now they're a stay-at-home parent in some respect, and they're a teacher. So, there's a lot to be said about that. So please do what you need to do. Do, everything you can to stay safe, wear your mask, don't complain, do what you got to do, wash your hands, all that good stuff, and then let's find a way to, hopefully, control the controllables on our side of it as human beings, and, get to a place where we could do what we need to do. I mean, I haven't been able to travel down to Florida since December, and that's insane to me that it's been a year, so almost a year. So I definitely want to get myself back down there and just be smart, everybody, please, and be healthy and stay safe so that we can do what we need to do, because we definitely, Mike and I want a football season not because, we're like these money-hungry, crazy people. We want a football season because we love it, because we know what it does for people and the jobs that it creates. Don't forget about the groundskeepers. Don't forget about the trash collectors. Don't forget about the people that work the concession stands and all that stuff. I mean, there are people that are a part of the everyday part of this thing. I mean, the people that are doing the lines on the field, like without them, we don't have a field. And I think that, it's really important to understand that it's not just the players and the owners. There's a lot of people whose jobs are on the line, and there's a lot of things that, can be affecting people in a not so positive way. So keep praying, keep doing the best you can, keep working your tail off, and let's get better with all this. Mike, it is time for us to get into the AFC West. We got the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers. As we talk about them, people will see them. And so we're going to get started here with the Denver Broncos, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to be able to share this with everybody. It's been a great thing that we've gotten to do here on the show. So I hand it off to you first and foremost as we take a look at those Denver Broncos. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they have a 12th toughest schedule in the league this year. They have the toughest league out of all the toughest schedule out of all the guys and all the other teams in their division. Again, 12th toughest schedule. But I think I liked what I saw at the end of the year from Drew Lock. I liked the way he finished. I think he finished strong. I think he was able to get the deep ball out of his hands. You look at a guy like Cortland Sutton. He's been slowly progressing, but then they fall. They get Jerry Jeudy. I mean, that is a dream. I think they add KJ Hamler in the mix too. You're going to see a lot of him in the slot. I know Deshaun Hamilton hasn't shown us much yet, but that's okay because Noah Fant started to show up at the end of the year. And to make it easy on Lock, they brought in one of his buddies, Albert Okunwuma, but Albert. We're going to call him Albert from Missouri, his old buddy. So I know he was excited about that. And, these are guys that can catch the ball. So I look for a lot of air attack, but I also look for a lot of ground attack as well. That's going to set up that air attack. When you consider Philip Lindsay, who popped off the screen at us a couple years ago, a guy some people didn't even think was going to make the team, a guy that, all of a sudden the local kid gone good, here he is. He's going to be the top running back on it. No, we're going to bring in Melvin Gordon. But I don't think it's a sense of alarm for Philip Lindsay. I think this is going to be a thing where Melvin Gordon is a premium back in this league still. I still believe in him, and I think he brings a lot to the table. You're going to see a lot of his ability to catch the ball, but that's what Philip Lindsay does as well. So I like Drew Lock as a sleeper quarterback this year. I think they have a lot to offer as an offensive power up and down. I'm not saying any of these guys are number one at their position, but as a team, I like what they're able to do. And I think the defense is coming around as well. Bradley Chubb, Todd Davis, Von Miller. They bring in A.J. Bouye on the corner. Bryce Callahan's finally getting a shot here to lock down one of the corners. So this is going to be an interesting team if the defense can hold up, and I think they will. Vegas has Denver at a 7.5 win total going through game by game. I think Vegas is pretty smart. That's how they build those big buildings in Vegas. I got them at 8-8, so you're just at that Mendoza line there. Look for a pretty good season, but again, the schedule's not doing them any favors, and Drew Lock is still relatively young, but I think there's some fantasy gems, some fantasy diamonds in the rough there on the Denver squad.
Yeah, I think the Denver Broncos do have some good things going on here, and like you said, Drew Lock is potentially a sleeper quarterback. I agree. I think this team is going to go as Drew Lock goes. I'm a big fan of Cortland Sutton, and I'm not a big fan of the highlights we're watching of last season showing the Denver Broncos just take advantage of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll tell you that much. But I will say that. The Denver Broncos, Drew Lock, the team is going to go as he goes. He's got two starting running backs in Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. He's got Cortland Sutton, who has emerged as the top wide receiver on the team. Jerry Jeudy, them falling in, or him falling into their lap was absolutely fantastical. I couldn't written it better. Deshaun Hamilton and some of the other young cats that are on the team, looking at that opportunity for them to excel. Noah Fant, who they drafted last year, wondering if they were going to take him, and were they going to take their quarterback, and they, people were kind of like, what are they waiting for? And they waited on Drew Lock and whatnot, but they ended up, essentially getting Drew, and they got Noah Fant. So I think they drafted pretty well here in recent history, and I think that there's some good to be had as this team moves forward. I think the Denver Broncos do have some good things to be excited about. I think fantasy-wise, Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, either one of them is worth a nod. I mean, I don't look for, for you to draft them high. I don't think they're a top 5, top 10. Maybe one of them squeaks in the top 15 in Melvin Gordon, but ultimately you can check our predictions on that and our thoughts on the rankings for fantasy running backs by going to wakeupcalldt.com and just scrolling down the homepage to check it there, or you can go to the fantasy football tab and get our broadcast there as well. But, I do think both of these running backs could do some positive things. I think Cortland Sutton is definitely, one of the guys that you got to go out and get. Hans McGee, as we just see him pull down in double coverage, be able to put his eye on the ball and catch it on his way down. Cortland Sutton's done some fantastic things. I covered him at SMU. I am very, very excited to see what he could do. This might be a breakout season for him. And at the same time, I think Noah Fant is a nice little sleeper tight end for you. And Jerry Jeudy, I think, is going to be one of those fantasy wide receivers, rookie wide receivers that could do some really great things for you inside of fantasy play. I think Jerry Jeudy could be a steal as a rookie wide receiver, and I think he's somebody that maybe should be taken a little bit higher. Bradley Chubb, who I covered at NC State, huge fan of Bradley. He's their strong side linebacker. Obviously got Von Miller there. And, as Mike was saying, A.J. Boye, one of my favorite Jacksonville Jaguars, can't believe he's already gone, as I spent time with him in Jacksonville, and I actually talked to him when he was getting on the plane. His agent helped to set it up. So I am very much going to miss A.J. Boye. I think Denver got a steal with him. Jacksonville just getting some late-round picks for these guys, him and Calais Campbell and whatnot, as well as Nick Foles. So I think this is going to be a good thing. We're watching Noah Fant run into the end zone here, big-bodied tight end. I honestly think the Denver Broncos, you might and definitely bookmark this, save this video, utilize this video as we ask you to do all the time. Use it today, tomorrow, and the next day, because I think people are going to pass on Denver. I think that they're not going to be really high on some of these guys, which means that Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, and I think Cortland Sutton might get picked up, but a Jerry Jeudy, a Noah Fant, maybe a Philip Lindsay and a Melvin Gordon. For some people, might think Melvin's washed up a little bit. He's not. He's young. People don't think about that either. So I think the Denver Broncos could definitely help you win some fantasy games and maybe a championship if you're smart enough to pick them up when other people pass them by. But this season is resting on the arms of Drew Lock, and so we'll see what he can do and how he moves forward. But if he can make it happen, Mike, I think there's a lot of good to be had this season with these Denver Broncos. With that being said, we hop over into the Kansas City Chiefs, and I hand it back to my partner here when it comes to all things fantasy football, and that is a Mr. Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Make sure that you find us on Facebook in the Facebook group Winning Fantasy Football. Mike, we're only talking about the best quarterback in the league and the highest paid, and who's averaging $50 million if you break down his contract season by season. He's going to be a Chief for the next 12 years. What do you think about this Pat Mahomes guy and the rest of Kansas City?
Wow. He wowed me in the Super Bowl. He wowed me in the AFC Championship. He wowed me all year last year. I think he's a great young man, obviously, with a bright future in the NFL here, and he's on top of the game. He coming off the winning Super Bowl here. Now it's a shame that a couple of the new pieces they've added to the Chiefs are not going to get the benefit of a full training program. The young guys coming in, I think that's what we're seeing across the board, team to team. Very rarely is there going to be a rookie come in, be thrusted into the spotlight right away, and all of a sudden be a star. But wait a second, there is one on this team, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look, Damian Wilson opted out. That was his right. that immediately moves Edwards-Helaire into that slot as the starting back. And looking at what he did in the SEC, a la the NFL junior, the minor league system of the NFL, the SEC, LSU winning national championship right there with Joe Burrow. This is a guy who's explosive. He can make it happen. He can bust one loose at any time, and that's the scary thing. I think anytime you have a guy that can take one to the house, it's a scary thing. And when he gets the ball 20, 25 times a game, well, I think that's a scary thing for a lot of opponents. Now, I would have thought that Darwin Thompson would share a lot of this load, but Darwin Thompson's that Bryant Westbrook type guy that Andy Reid likes. So I think we're going to see some Darwin Thompson mixed in there too. I'm sure there's going to be some pass blocking schemes that maybe Clyde, may be deficient on just simply because of the short preseason here. But they have pieces all over the field. Sammy Watkins, DeMarcus Robinson coming back, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, arguably the top tight end in the league. You have a solid defense. You can rush the quarterback and you can protect the quarterback. You have an offensive line and you have a defensive line. Thin at the linebacker spot, but you make that up on the back end with Tyrone Matthew. I think Bashaud Breeland was underrated last year. They bring in some under-the-radar guys. Bo Pete Keys is a guy you're going to hear a lot about. He's going to be a nickel guy for them, hopefully on the field sooner rather than later. I like the Chiefs a lot. There's nothing bad I can say about them. Great coaching, great offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. Steve Spagnuolo. I don't know what else to say. I'm looking for something negative. I went through the schedule, and I can only find 3 losses. The first one coming up in Week 3 at Baltimore. The Vegas line is 11.0 on the wins. I say they go over that. I say they go 13-3. I like Kansas City a lot.
Yeah, Kansas City, we talked about it, how they're going to be going up against the Baltimore Ravens and what could be potentially a little mini Super Bowl in the AFC championship game before we see the actual Super Bowl itself. You named that Damian Williams, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, has opted out. It's important for people to know that and make a fantasy note about that. So they went out and they have DeAndre Washington, who could share some time with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The team that won the Super Bowl went and got an LSU running back and put him onto the team with an opportunity to start right away, and now he will. Darwin Thompson, I would look for him to be in the kick return and punt return game. He's done a lot of good things. His coach at Utah State, running backs coach at the time, who's now at Texas Tech, DeAndre Smith, a good friend of mine, had Darwin Thompson over 1,000-yard back, and so he's somebody to look at very deep if you have a league that you have to kind of dig deep there. Darwin Thompson's a guy you could pick up later on, kind of grab him and stash him. With Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he could have an immediate impact on this team. And then Tyreek Hill, obviously the speedster, you know what he can do. Sammy Watkins, who came from Clemson, did a lot of amazing things there. I remember, I think it was like the second play from scrimmage. He was at the Carrier Dome, which is now the Dome, as they look to potentially maybe sell the naming rights again. But Sammy Watkins was there, and I remember Clemson in this play, the drop back, and then just the toss in the air, and it was silent in the Dome. It was kind of dark in the Dome, and there's single coverage, and Sammy just catches the ball and runs for like an 80-yard touchdown, and you're like, really, this is how the game's going to start? So Sammy Watkins had a great time in Clemson, but then he went to Buffalo, kind of fell off a little bit. Sammy was relatively quiet at times, but now that he's in Kansas City, it seems like, he's got the right quarterback, the right fit, and when Tyreek was out and whatnot, Sammy stepped up. I think Sammy can give you some definite fantasy value. I think if anybody were to be out for a week or two, he raises that value. But if everybody stays healthy, I think it's safe to say that he could still get you something. And McCole Hardman, who Mike has talked about before, he's another guy to put out there and maybe get, grab and stash like a Darwin Thompson and utilize for later. Travis Kelce, one of the top tight ends in the nation, if not the top tight end to some people here. This is a team that has a ton of talent. And again, adding Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they won a Super Bowl without Kareem Hunt. I'm going to remind you of that. And now they have a running back to help out Pat Mahomes, who can throw left-handed, who can throw when he's kicking his legs out in the air. He can throw on the run. He can do all kinds of stuff. So I'm excited to see Kansas City and everything that they will bring to the table. this upcoming season. There is so much talent on this team fantasy-wise, and if you have a Kansas City Chief, which we couldn't say years ago, you're in good footing right now, and you're going to be doing some great things. Mike said that he believes that this team can win, Mike, you said 13 games, right?
Yeah, I have them going 13-3. I have them losing at Baltimore in Week 3, and everybody's going to hit the panic button there. I don't have them picking up another loss until Week 12 at Tampa Bay. That's a game that I've got circled. I'm going to make sure I'm paying attention to that one. Then I have them losing again in Week 15 when it probably doesn't matter. They have to visit New Orleans. New Orleans is a tough place to play.
Yeah, I would definitely say looking at this regular season, I mean, Kansas City has got a rematch with the Texans, who they defeated after the Texans had a mighty, what it looked like to be a hold on the game in the playoffs, and then Kansas City went all the way through and won. We know Pat Mahomes doesn't care if he's down by 21 or more. He'll come back and make it happen. So, we look at that. I could see that as a win at the Chargers, at the Ravens. That's going to be a big-time game for Kansas City. Could go either way, but I'll side on Kansas City. They have the Patriots this season that have 8 players that have opted out, and Cam Newton is their quarterback. I'll call that a dub. But that's going to be a tough game, at Ravens and then home against the Patriots in the first 4 weeks. Then they have the Raiders at the Bills, at the Broncos. I'm going to safely say Kansas City will be 12-4 or 13-3. There's, I'm circling that at Buffalo game and, the Ravens game as well, just kind of circling those and seeing, that could be one where they could lose. So I'm going to say 12-4 or 13-3 for the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a very, very dangerous team as they get set to yet again make another run and have another opportunity at this thing. And with that being said, Mike and I will have a run at the other side of the AFC West right after this fast break, where sports meets life. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll take a step aside to hear from our fantastic partners, and then we will be right back at it as we continue on the AFC West analysis and predictions, bringing you our thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. Something we couldn't say just a few years ago when both of these teams were playing in another city. We'll be back right after this fast break.
Carvel the way. It's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvelange, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel the way. It's what happy tastes like.
Charney's Men's Clothing is your one-stop shop for your men's dress up and dress down wear. Located on 3150 Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse, Charney's Men's Clothing is proud to be your trusted name for decades in suits, sport coats, tuxedos, and all accessories. Charney's Men's Clothing also provides sports and leisure-themed casual wear for the everyday man. Stop in and see our welcome and friendly staff on 3150 Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Mike Sofka and I are firmly inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. And today we are discussing the AFC West, the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Las Vegas, first time I ever get to say that in a season, Las Vegas Raiders, and the Los Angeles Chargers. So, as we talk about it, you will see it, as we do here on the broadcast, break it down each of these divisions. We started in the AFC with the North, South, East, and now West we're doing today, and then we'll jump over to the NFC and start with the NFC North with next week, and inside of the Wake Up Call Fantasy Football Power Hour. So with that being said, I'm going to hand the ball back to my partner here in Mr. Mike Sofka as we talk about those Las Vegas Raiders. So, Mike, it's all you. Take it away, my good sir.
Yeah, Vegas, it's a shame. They got that big, beautiful new stadium, and no one is going to be sitting in it to watch football this year. There's not going to be anybody there. It is what it is. It's going to be, it's going to be interesting to me when we see these cases. Are they going to do like baseball? Are we going to have cardboard cutouts of fans? Are we going to pump in crowd noise? I'll tell you what, a lot of people aren't thinking about, you got to change the communication on the field. You're used to a certain level of crowd noise, so you're used to, even when you hold that play card in front of your mouth as the offensive coordinator, they're going to hear you because you're right there. You're on the field. It's not going to be that same level of background noise. There's microphones all over the NFL fields built into some of the stadiums here. So that part's going to be fascinating as a fan. Maybe we'll hear more at home. I'll tell you what they're not going to get tired of hearing about, though, is Henry Ruggs, the speedster, the 4.240 guy. Now, a little curious. He didn't finish as high as most people would think, being the speedster that he is on the adjusted explosive index. That's how I rank rookie wide receivers coming out here. And that's a real good stat and a real good thing you want to look at for dynasty leagues. Go ahead and check that out on the site, HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com. But I like the receivers. I like bringing in Brian Edwards. I like Henry Ruggs. Tyrell Williams should show up there big. Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I think he's finally going to step up this year. Nelson Aguilar's kind of faded away. Nelson Aguilar, highly effective in the slot there as well, though. I like the tight end. We called him out back last year, Darren Waller. But, what do? They bring in a veteran guy, a true veteran guy, Jason Witten, who couldn't stay away from the game, went back to Dallas last year, now finds a home in Vegas. Derek Carr. You look at Derek Carr, and some people dismiss him. I'm worried, as the quarterback collector that John Gruden is, that Derek Carr may not get a fair shake. Marcus Mariota breathing down his neck. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think with the weapons around him, Josh Jacobs running the ball, they bring in Linton Bowden Jr. Half the site's got this cat from Kentucky. You like what I did there, cat from Kentucky? Lynn Bowden, half the sites you're going to see him listed as a wide receiver, half as a running back. He's officially on the depth chart as a running back, drafted as a wide receiver. This is a guy they just want to get the ball in his hands. I like what they're doing on defense as well. I like Nick Kwiatkowski, the strong side linebacker. I liked him as he emerged through the Bears organization, and good for him getting paid a little bit to go to Vegas. But they're going to have to pressure the quarterback. They're going to have to step up the pressure with Cleveland Farrell. I need to see something from those interior linemen. Arden Key, is he ever going to show up? Maybe that the pressure may be off just him. Carl Nassib in the fold, too. He's a Syracuse guy, isn't he?
Who is that?
Carl Nassib, isn't he a Syracuse guy?
He may. Is Carl? I'm sorry. What did you say, Carl? Who?
Carl Nassib.
Carl Nassib.
Nassib.
Oh, Nassib. Carl Nassib. No, Ryan Nassib. Carl Nassib is related to a Penn State guy. Yes.
There I go. Trying to step into college territory there. Look what happened.
That's okay.
Anyway, look. I think that the Vegas Raiders are going to have a decent year. I think they're going to have a better year than some people expect. I think some offensive gems are to be had. I think Derek Carr is going to be dismissed as the fantasy quarterback this year. I think that's a mistake. I like some of the weapons around him. I like John Gruden's attitude on offense. I like the speed. They may have to score a lot of points to keep up. Not too happy with the overall defense as far as being able to stop people from scoring. I think they're going to keep people in check, but nothing really wows me on the defense. I think they're solid, don't get me wrong, but I think that's going to keep the fantasy values of the offensive players on his team up because they're going to have to score. If you're giving up a lot of points, you're going to have to score a lot of points, and that's always good for fantasy ball players. You know, Vegas has the line for the Raiders. And it's funny because that's one of the things that held the NFL up from going to Vegas for years because they didn't want to be in the same town with the wise guys and the sharps and the casinos because they were afraid of sports getting rigged. Look, at this point, if it's rigged, it's rigged. Electronically is a lot better than being there in person. NFL is there. Giant Stadium, Allegiant Stadium. Nobody's going to be there this year. But the Raiders are going to finish right on that line at 8-8. I think they're a middle-of-the-road team because of that suspect defense. I think they're going to have to score a lot of fantasy points, though, and do your team well. Look for some Raiders in your fantasy drafts. And again, I got the Raiders. That's a good name, the Vaders, the Las Vaders.
I like it.
I like that. I like it. They're going to go 8-8.
You know, I just like they come out and there's a smoke and they're like the Las Vegas, and you hear. I love that. The Las Vegas Vaders. I like it. Let's make it happen. So I think, yeah, the Las Vaders. I love that. That's a good one. I think that's, you know what? It kind of sounds like you know a group of strippers that would be performing somewhere. You know, a bunch of people come out with like the Vader helmet on. I'm just saying. Anyways, we digress. So, with that being said, Las Vegas is, you know, I mean, it's a place where people go to spend a lot of money. Prostitution is legal. Basically, everything I think in Las Vegas is legal. As far as I can understand. But there's not a lot of people on the Strip. And so, a little bit different, a little bit strange, a little bit funky. Maybe the sand's taking over a little bit like in some of those movies we've seen. But the Vegas Raiders, nonetheless, not the type of, you know, opening you want to have. You kind of call Oakland and go, hey, can we stay here for a minute? Because we kind of want to open up this stadium when people can actually go into it. So, very interesting thing here, but I don't think the Raiders, Mike's got them at 8-8. I do think that they could shock some people and do some good things, but I you know, have said, and I said recently here last week in the AFC East conversation, that I think the Jets and the Raiders are going to be in the top 3 picks, and I think the Raiders are going to make a play for Trevor Lawrence because I don't know how sold John Gruden is on Derek Carr. Obviously, he brought in Marcus Mariota. We know what he did to Khalil Mack, and ultimately, he likes Clemson players. So, and Trevor Lawrence is exactly that. You know, I see the schedule at Carolina to start off the season with Teddy Bridgewater, Christian McCaffrey and company. Shout out to Christian McCaffrey, who, like me, drinks body armor. Love it. New Orleans Saints, they have in week 2. Then they're at New England. Buffalo at home, at Kansas City. Tampa Bay at Cleveland, at Los Angeles Chargers. Denver and Kansas City at home, at Atlanta, at the Jets. Against Indy, against Los Angeles, the Chargers again, and then Miami. They have a 3-game homestand, and they're at Denver. The games that I think that the Raiders can win when I'm looking at this right now, I see the Jets game. I see potentially the Indy game, which I think will be higher scoring. I see the Miami game, but is Tua taking over at that point? Where are they at? And then I look at, you know, 2 games against Denver, maybe splitting one of those in Los Angeles. So I could see them get to 5, maybe 6, but I ultimately can also see them, you know, not be that high. I think the Jets are going to go 3-13, and I think the Raiders are going to be somewhere up there in the top 3 picks or top few picks here, top 3, top 4. So I don't see them having as good of a season. However, I do think there is some fantasy value, and I think that fantasy value lies with Josh Jacobs, obviously. We talk about Alabama quarterbacks that don't translate to the NFL. Well, he did the exact opposite. He does translate to the NFL. So I do like what we're seeing from Josh Jacobs. Darren Waller, somebody that I consistently give Mike credit for, and that's because he was extremely intelligent when it came to knowing that Darren Waller was going to be one of those guys. Jason Witten's there at 112 years old. He came back, I thought, to just, throw the Cowboys a bone, but apparently he still wanted to play football. because he went to the Cowboys for a year and then he left and went to the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow, who I brought up, a guy who has fantastic hands, who was at the Camping World Stadium in the ACC Championship a few years ago, and without that, Deshaun Watson, without the hands of Hunter Renfrow and Deion Kane, I don't think Clemson wins that game with Virginia Tech just consistently answering the call. So Hunter Renfrow, who was, somebody that maybe you didn't know, maybe was 6th on the depth chart, I think he would definitely jump up there. He has. Zay Jones, who I covered at East Carolina, he is now from Buffalo to the Raiders. Nelson Aguilar, who didn't work out with the Eagles, he's now a Raider. So there's a bunch of guys getting a second opportunity, like a Tyrell Williams as well, who came from the Chargers. And then Henry Ruggs III, the first wide receiver taken off the board, not Jerry Jeudy, which is kind of interesting. And then Hunter Renfrow, as I had mentioned before. So I think there's some young cats here that you can help fill out your roster with. A Henry Ruggs, a Tyrell Williams, a Hunter Renfrow, and then, sleeper guys in Zay Jones or Nelson Aguilar that maybe you can get in free agency or on the waiver wire to look to. And definitely you want to pick up Josh Jacobs as you look at the Raiders team. I don't rely heavily on their defense. I also don't rely heavily on them having a winning season, but I do think there is some fantasy value for these Raiders in Vegas. And if for nothing else, I'm excited to see the Vegas show. It's just unfortunate that there won't be any fans in the stands, and there won't be anybody wearing Vader helmets making a very interesting intro. But I do still think that they should do the smoke and the. That would be awesome. So if they want to do that and they want to figure out some help to get that done, call me up and I'll work on that for you. I got some time here inside of Corona time. So with that being said, Mike, we're going to flip to the last team inside of the AFC West, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. What are your thoughts on a Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon-less Los Angeles Chargers that will now have the opportunity for another running back to emerge? Will it be somebody we know or somebody else? And we'll have an opportunity to see Tyrod Taylor and potentially, maybe, who knows, Mr. Gilbert might make his, Herbert, pardon me, he might make his appearance, but I think of all the rookie quarterbacks out there, he might be the one that we don't see until next season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Tyrod Taylor is a very serviceable quarterback in this league. He could be one of those Mendoza line guys. When I say Mendoza line, that's the middle of the road. That's a rank 16 or so. I'll give you an example. Last year was Andy Dalton. He was pretty much always that guy you could pick up on the waiver wire for a bye week or if you had an injury or something like that. Tyrod Taylor can scramble. Tyrod Taylor can run. Tyrod Taylor led Buffalo into playoffs a few years ago. Tyrod Taylor always underestimated. Nobody ever thinks this guy can get it done. What do? They bring him in, and then they don't think he can get it done. Look, it's obvious you got to build for the future. Justin Herbert was there. Fine career at Oregon. I think he's going to fit in just fine. Especially with the short preseason here. If I was the coach, I would make sure that Tyrod Taylor is my starter. I would make that known going in. And see where it lands. Does Tyrod get injured right making all those scrambling plays? When is Herbert ready? When is Justin going to finally grasp things in the playbook? It's short-cycled. It's one thing to be visually learning. It's one thing to be interactive on a computer. It's another thing to be on the field. You want to get better as a football player? Get football reps. You have to play football to get better at football. These guys are coming into the NFL. This is not Oregon. This is not the Pac-12 anymore. This is the NFL. But he's going to have a lot of help around him. Keenan Allen, Pro Bowl, all-pro type player. Keenan Allen is always a top fantasy wide receiver selection. They bring in Joe Reed and K.J. Hill this year. I like Mike Williams, though. I think we're going to see the reemergence of Mike Williams. And again, Hunter Henry is always a consummate tight end. If he can stay healthy, he had time to follow up behind Antonio Gates. And, I'm not going to spoil it, but you guys need to check out Hard Knocks. They have the Chargers on there, and he went. There's something with the tight end position. I'm just going to say that. So catch that on what was it, HBO Hard Knocks? Yeah. Catch that. But Austin Eckler is the guy. He's going to be the man that's running the ball most of the time. He was usually the third down guy or the guy to give Melvin Gordon a breather. Austin Eckler is a fantasy running back. He's a second running back type kind of guy because they're bringing along just Justin Jackson, and they brought in 4 other running backs. These guys are journeymen. Lucky if they make the team, but a lot of people didn't hear of Philip Lindsay. A lot of people didn't hear of Austin Eckler a few years ago as well. I'll tell you, there's not really a deficiency on the line. I think they're okay. I think they're building that offensive line, but defense is where it's at. They can pressure the quarterback with Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram. They bring in Kenneth Murray, who's going to be a tackling machine in the middle at the linebacker spot. Don't forget they got Derwin James in the back there, Rashawn Jenkins. They probably have the best 1-2 safety combination in the league. I think this is a team that's going to be capable of doing things, capable of getting you fantasy points, just not this year. They have a tough schedule. They draw the toughest schedule out of anybody in the AFC West. They have the 23rd toughest schedule. So I think they're going to do well, considering the challenges before them, considering you have Tyrod Taylor, considering Justin Herbert isn't ready to come in, considering you have a defense that can hold you, bend not break type defense. But they got a pretty tough road to hoe. In the AFC West, it's tough. Vegas has them at 8 games this year, winning 8 games. I went through their schedule several times. I can't see any more than 5 wins. I think there's some tough road games. I think the game at Tampa, then follow that up the next week with at New Orleans. They just have a tough schedule. I think it's going to be a challenge for them to hit 8 games. Again, I got them 5-11. Not a lot of fantasy value outside of Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. Maybe an Austin Eckler in there, but if you play IDP, of course, Joey Bosa. But again, I wouldn't rush to Vegas. I wouldn't rush to the online sports book to hit the over on the total for the Chargers. They're going to go under.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Chargers, to me, I mean, this is going to be a work in progress. And, Tyrod Taylor taking over here and being their starting quarterback. I think Tyrod is one of those guys that is, I agree with you, he is serviceable. Justin Herbert being the rookie quarterback that they got out of Oregon and what he could do and where he goes from here. Easton Stick as well that they had picked up last season, another guy that I don't think is a bad third option to have. But, this team is going to have to build and figure this out. Austin Eckler is the tiny guy like a Sproles guy that they had, and now he's the one that can take over. Justin Jackson was underwhelming. He's a young player. He has an opportunity to do some good things. Josh Kelly is there as well. So it's a question mark of what the running back situation is going to look like. Somebody will pick up Austin Eckler, resting on the laurels of the fact that he's had experience, that he is the incumbent, so to speak, and that he's done some good things. But I think he may be drafted maybe a little bit too high, and in some cases he may be a forgotten man. So watch your draft and see how things are trending and see what you can do to maybe pick up somebody like Eckler, who does get utilized in the passing as well as the running game. Keenan Allen is obviously still there and is the number one option for them, but every quarterback has their guy. So remember that. Mike Williams, having a connection, that could be something that could change things for Mike Williams. There's not a lot of people to write home about besides Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, so both of those guys look like opportunities for you to draft inside of your fantasy draft this season. Hunter Henry is back with the Chargers. There was a thought that he could go elsewhere, and he is there. He's on the franchise tag, though, so this is going to be a contract year for him. So he'll be doing his thing. If he can stay healthy, he obviously stays dangerous. He can come back in Week 14 and do a lot of damage. He's one of those guys you don't want to play against. So some good stuff coming here from the Chargers. And like Mike said, if you have IDP individual, a defensive player, Joey Bosa is somebody that you should definitely go out for. Melvin Ingram, another guy on the defense to look to. But ultimately, I like this defense better than the Raiders' defense. I don't think that it's a slouch if you're able to pick them up as your defense. I think there's some good things with the Chargers. I think they'll be able to, help you out a little bit. But ultimately, when I look at this season and who they have to play, I mean, they got a nice game there in Week 1 on Sunday, September 13th at Cincinnati. Then they got to play Kansas City at home. They play Carolina, and then they go at Tampa Bay, at New Orleans. They play the Jets. I mean, if I'm looking at this right now, I'm saying at Cincinnati, okay. The Jets at home, okay. Miami on the road, West Coast, East Coast thing. Let's give it to them in that one. And, a few other games here. I don't see Los Angeles having a tremendous year. I could see the Vegas Raiders having a better season than they do. I think if Vegas can catch fire here in a positive way, they could get to 6 to 8 wins. I do think they're going to be a team that's below 500, but I don't like the Chargers' schedule. I really don't. And ultimately, I think the Chargers could end up on the backside of everything here in the AFC West when things shake out. The Chargers are on a list, though, where they have no players. They're one of the only teams in the league to have no players opt out this season. So an interesting note to make here. No one from the franchise of the Los Angeles Chargers opted out on the 2020-21 season due to coronavirus. So worth making a note of that. But I think your best option here is Hunter Henry, feet to the fire, and then maybe an Austin Eckler after that. And Keenan Allen, obviously. So I'd say Hunter Henry, Keenan Allen, and then a guy like Austin Eckler. With that being said, Mr. Sofka, we have wrapped up the AFC West, and we've wrapped up the AFC on a hopeful season. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing? What's going on? How confident are you that we can actually kick this season off?
Well, the NFL keeps pushing forward. The NFL keeps saying, yeah, we realize college has their situation going on. We're still on schedule. We're going to play our games. Somehow, some way, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to adapt. We're going to overcome. We're going to adjust as we go. It's been an adjustment for a lot of people. We don't grocery shop the same way anymore. You've had to make some adjustments. Things are going on in the outside world. You can only control what you can only control, and that's what the NFL does. They're not taking what anybody else does and saying, oh, that's our blueprint. I think they have the ability and the fortunate ability to be able to watch what Major League Baseball is doing, watch what the NBA is doing, watch what college is doing, and then take the best of all those things and put them to what you're doing. There's going to be some stumbling blocks. Stuff's going to happen. Questions are going to be raised. How are we going to adapt and overcome these things? That's what a lot of these guys have done all their life, being professional athletes. They've always been the top of their game. I don't think this is going to stop everybody. If they can just do what they're asked to do, don't be selfish. If you're asked to stay in a bubble, don't go out to the club because you're bored at the hotel. Do what you need to do to help your team. If you do that, you're going to be successful. If not, it is what it is. I'm hopeful for a season. I'm not counting on it with the way things are going in the world, but I'm very hopeful. And I think if there's one league that can get it right, even with travel, it'll be the NFL. And I'm going to put my trust in what Goodell and crew are doing in the NFL. I think we're going to have a season.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for the opportunity and obviously hopeful for a season as we get set here inside of, this sports world that we have seen. And it's obviously more difficult when it comes to the NFL and whatnot. But we saw baseball kind of have some issues initially with not having a bubble, but they've been able to carry on and do what they need to do. And, and what we're seeing right now is that it doesn't seem like the virus is being spread in competition. So, we're not hearing a lot about it spreading from team to team, player to player, so to speak. We've seen the MLS work in a bubble. We've seen the NBA work in a bubble. We've seen NHL work in a bubble. I want to make note that the NHL has had 2 weeks of testing, no positives, and the NBA has had 3 weeks of testing, no positives. And Onondaga County, where I live, is currently at less than 1% right now for testing positive. Mike, what are your thoughts on college football really quick here? The governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has made the statement that he would allow college football players to come play in the state. He's basically welcoming everybody to Florida. Let's open Disney, let's open Universal, let's open everything, let's bring the NBA, let's bring the MLS, and by the way, college football players, if your conference says you can't play, you can come down here and play in Florida. He's basically opening Florida as a giant amusement park / field / court. What are your thoughts?
I think it's great. I think it's great for me as a resident of Florida. I think it's great for the leagues. I think it's great to have an opportunity. Look, there's a lot of fear, not getting political, not talking about the math that's involved, not talking about all those things. One of the things we do know is that the COVID is sensitive to heat. Florida's a hotter state. Hello, there's a lot of humidity here. We have the facilities, being the Sunshine State, being the tourist attraction as a state. There's no state income tax here. You know why? People come from all over the country and all over the world to spend money here, especially in Central Florida. Disney is a first-class operation. We have cruise ships that we can park in and store teams on cruise ships, much like they did in Jacksonville for the Super Bowl a few years back, to add more hotel rooms. Hotel rooms, we got whole hotels that are sitting empty right now. Okay, each team, 32 teams can have 32 different NFC, they can have their own hotel. They'll be isolated. It'll be their own bubble. They can get on a bus at the front of the hotel, go to the field. I think it would be an awesome opportunity if the bottom falls out of this thing, if the NFL does need to consider a bubble. I think it's an excellent opportunity. Hats off to Ron DeSantis for keeping his foot on the pedal. I'll tell you what, one thing I learned about business in life, when everybody else is scared and when everybody else is scaling back and when everybody else is panicking, that's when you put your foot on the accelerator. That's when you go hard and fast, and that's what they're trying to do here in Florida. Hats off to Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, very interesting what's going on here as Florida has made the decision to go full steamboat ahead, Willie, and yes, I made a reference to Mickey. So with that being stated, I want to thank you, Mike, for being a part of today's show and everything you do. Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. Join us on the Winning Fantasy Football group. It's on Facebook. Go to Facebook and type in Winning Fantasy Football. I just invited a bunch of you wonderful people into the group, so thank you for those of you that are accepting those invites and joining us there today. And as always, Mike, please stay safe. I know you and I got a draft coming up here, and I'm trying to figure out the mechanics of it all, so hopefully we can get something done here very soon as we get set for the 2020-2021 NFL season, hopefully. And beyond all that, I appreciate your friendship, appreciate everything that you do, and please keep the family safe and you stay safe, and hopefully, let's have some football.
Sounds good, Dan. I'll talk to you next time.
All right, sounds good. That coming from Mike Sofka here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com and, of course, of our Winning Fantasy Football group here on Facebook. With that being said, we're going to take a quick step aside for a fast break, the final fast break of the show, and then we are going to wrap up today's broadcast, get you ready for the rest of the week. Charney's Men's Clothing is your one-stop shop for your men's dress-up and dress-down wear. Located on 3150 Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse, Charney's Men's Clothing is proud to be your trusted name for decades in suits, sport coats, tuxedos, and all accessories. Charney's Men's Clothing also provides sports and leisure-themed casual wear for the everyday man. Stop in and see our welcome and friendly staff on 3150 Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you download their app on the Google Play or Apple App Store now to have their entire menu at your fingertips, from their salads to their healthy bowls to their brick oven pizzas and over 30 different sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle what we know as Pulaski today, to their desserts and their fresh-made breads. Everything that they have is absolutely, it's fantastic. And when you think, and as I said before, and I'll say it again, when you think you have a favorite, it changes because there's so many great things on the menu. The bee sting pizza, the steak and blue pizza, to their fantastic sandwiches. I've had so many different ones, to the Cobb salad, to the M&M cookies, which I still have one in the house. Shout at that, man! And ours were like made fresh. Where like if you touched it, it was warm and like And it was like it would morph if you touch it. You had to just keep it by itself somewhere in the car. So make sure you head out to the Millhouse Market. You want to get there soon so that you can get the best of the best, because sometimes things go quickly at the Millhouse. A lot of times they do. 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Love the food there, and appreciate more so the guest service. Thank you to Rebecca Alford and her entire team. They have the app with contactless pay. You could sit in your car, go to the drive-up window, grab your food, and go. It is healthy. It is safe. It is great. I mean, what they're doing for us in the community right now to keep us healthy and keep us safe and socially distanced is great with their app and with the drive-up window, and the food itself is just amazing. So make sure you head out to the Millhouse Market. It is absolutely positively, whether it's a mile or 20, worth the drive every time. 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. With that being said, I want to thank my incredible and amazing guests that we've had here on the show. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Tune in live Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You're watching on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. You're listening on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Want to thank my guests today, Max White. Awesome, tremendous conversation with a great young man. Definitely go back and watch and listen to that. Max White, CNS Athletics, with his first offer from the Utica College Pioneers to play college football. And, of course, to Mike Stofka as we analyze the AFC West. It gave our predictions. The Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers means that we have officially finished the AFC. Those videos will be available to you on our social media, and I will share them with you in all different necks of the woods, so we'll make sure that we get them out to you so you can connect to them. The AFC analysis, we did the North, the South, the East, and now the West. Next week we'll start off our NFC analysis with Mike Stofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, and, of course, of our group that we ask you to join on Facebook, which is very easy to do. Go to Facebook and go to Winning Fantasy Football. Type that into the Facebook search bar. You'll find us, and we'll find you, and we'll have a grand old time. So, with all that being said, thank you again to Mike. Thank you again to, thank you, Jerry, for the positive words here. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Max. Thank you to you. Above all things, thank you to God. And I hope you have a great and tremendous day. Please be safe. Stay well. And as always, God bless. No stress. Do your best. Find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT, and all the time on WakeUpCallDT.com and our fantasy football tab that's there as well for everything that we have for fantasy football, which has truly become a tremendous, tremendous broadcast within a broadcast of Wake Up Call. We will see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow with Papa Joe from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time for Thursday, August 13th. And very special day because it's my grandfather's birth month, August 8th, and his lucky number 13. And when you add them together, you get my number, 21. So a very, very big day for us, and I wonder what God has in store. So awesome day coming up tomorrow, and Papa Joe will be with us. We will also be joined by a Syracuse Orange alumni that you don't want to miss. So all that great stuff's coming up on tomorrow's broadcast. Until then, please be safe, stay well, and I'll talk with you all soon. I will be guest appearing on the show as well, so I'll make sure I share that on social media so that you know that. And in the meantime, like I said, take care of yourself, take care of each other, be good to each other, and let's get through this thing once and for all, okay? God bless. I'll talk to you soon.